On today's show, Slovenia and Luka Doncic get a win in Eurobasket. We'll talk about how Luka looked and the rest of the team going forward, and Donovan Mitchell traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. What kind of effects does that have on the Dallas Mavericks? Another trade coming? Talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome! You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks and Slovenia for now. I'm Nick Angstadt. I'm Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to comment anything below. Just drop a me Slovenci in the chat. Just drop it in the chat, in the comments.
Me Slovenci!
Me Slovenci! And then also let us know, if you had to pick one Utah Jazz player to get traded to the Dallas Mavericks, Bogdanovich, Clarkson, Mike Conley, seems like they're all going to be available now after this Mitchell trade. Let us know in the comments. We'll get to that a little bit later. But we're going to start with Eurobasket because Luka Doncic played a basketball game and it was awesome. It was an incredible game. We're going to break that down from Eurobasket, and then we'll talk about the ripple effects from the Donovan Mitchell trade. A great game from Slovenia, I thought, or just an entertaining game overall, I thought, from Slovenia and Luka. Joining me, as always, my co-host,
I was like, are you going to continue going?
No, you're not here. I wonder if some people on the audio don't even know you're here. I changed the way I did the intro, and it totally threw off the rest of my intro. Joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, contributor at Mavs.com, the Slovenian suitor, the one more thinking. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Audio people, I'm here. I am here on the pod today. One, we got Luka Doncic basketball back. Let's go. That's super exciting. Watching a morning game, I was sitting there saying,
I enjoyed it.
You know what? It'd be kind of cool if we got more morning Mavs games. So,
hey,
but anyway.
Careful what you wish for. Careful what you wish for on those.
It was so good seeing Luka play basketball again. So good seeing the Slovenian team play meaningful basketball again. It took me back to the Olympic run that we did all the pods and stuff for through there. So, yes, Locked On Slovenia today.
It is Locked On Slovenia today. We'll talk about the win against Lithuania. It was a close one down the stretch. It was a tight game, and you could feel it. You could feel the difference in the two teams, though. You could feel how front court heavy the Lithuania was with Jonas Valenciunas and with Domantas Sabonis, and then you could also feel how like backcourt heavy the Slovenia was with Luka, obviously, but Dragic, Preplovic, like you could just Muric, like you could feel how different these two teams were really, really early on. The first two possessions was a Jonas Sabonis like high-low kind of situation where they got a bucket in the paint, and then the next possession was Luka step back three early, and I was just like, this is the way this game is going to go because this is how these two teams want to play.
Yeah, so in yesterday's pod, I did like 5 players I wanted to watch in Eurobasket, and I cheated, and one of them was the combo of Sabonis and Valenciunas together. I was like, I just want to see this big man duo together. But I love the Luka step back three there at the first of the game, and then he looks over at the Lithuanian bench and just gives them the Luka like smile, like that's gonna be a long day for you guys. Now he struggled a little bit, but when that moment happened, I was like, dang, it's good to have Luka basketball back in my life again. Like classic Luka.
It was a lot of classic Luka, and the entire Mavericks brain trust and front office was there. You had Mark Cuban, you had Nico Harrison, Jason Kidd, even Jamal Mosley was there as well because they also did a Dirk jersey retirement there for the German national team, so that was awesome. There were some really cool things in that. But yeah, the whole gang was there and they're still over in Europe during this whole Donovan Mitchell thing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it was cool to see that. But this game to me was just Luka Doncic at his best passing the ball. I mean, I think what did he get credit for? 10 assists in the end. 10 assists. There's no way. There's no shot he had 10 assists. Like if it was in the NBA or even just in the AAC, he would have gotten credit for like 12, 13, 14 assists because he was just chucking the ball all over the place. The passes between him and Toby when he's right near the rim are just incredible. And it's the way that Luka can bend a defense to his will and not have to score a lot. What did he finish with this? He finished with 14 points, 10 assists, 6 boards. He shot 4 of 14 from the field, 5 of 8 from the free throw line, missed 7 threes. Like that first 3 he hit at the beginning of the game was the only 3 he hit the whole time. And so those passes, like that's how he ended up like willing them to win this game.
Yeah, he kind of took it over with the passing late because, like you said, he struggled, shooting the ball some. I thought he got a little tired, later on in the game. But his chemistry with Toby is so much fun to watch. And it kind of reminds me of like him and Dwight of like, it's not like Mike Toby is, dominating the NBA or anything, but they just have this like instant chemistry between the two. And I just love watching them run the pick and roll. And it's not like Toby, is flying up DeAndre Jordan style above the rim and throwing down lobs either. It's like Luka just can do these pinpoint passes. They're like lobs, but they're not really. It's like I want to throw these like lofty passes up to where only Toby's arms can catch them and just lay them up. And but he was a blast. And then they bring in big Dimich. I don't know if I'm saying it right,
I think it's D-Mitch, but yeah,
D-Mitch.
That dude is a beast.
A tank. A literal tank dude comes in. I'm like, so I tweeted out. I was like, hey, I need more D-Mitch in my life. And the real Slovenia fans are like, no, you don't. You don't want him. You don't.
Well, and we've even seen him before, right? Like in Olympics and in some of these friendlies, like we've seen him play before, and you know what you're gonna get. But that bump he had on Jonas Valenciunas, where he just pushed him right off his spot and pushed him like into the first row almost, and then got that layup, like. That's the kind of stuff that you just don't see a lot of other bigs or even Mike Toby on Slovenia doing a lot. It was just a great play. But they needed that. They needed that size against Jonas and against Sabonis.
Oh yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, you don't see Valenciunas get knocked off a spot, like that. But we got a classic, Dragic 3, the late 3 by him, the captain, the Dragon. Mavs fans are just how are we?
No, we're not doing it. We're not going to do this. Listen.
Every time Dragic plays basketball,
Goran Dragic had a great game. He had 19 points, 3 assists, 2 steals. He came off the bench. He hit 3 threes. They started him off the bench, which I thought was kind of interesting. They started him and they started Zoran off the bench too, right? Yeah, they started him off the bench and Prepovic and Muric, like all off the bench. And I thought that gave him a little bit of extra like scoring punch off the bench, which this Slovenia team needs. Like that starting lineup with Luka, so much is built around him, and so much is built around them getting a lead and then the bench coming in and not necessarily keeping the lead. They need that extra scoring punch when he's not out there, and putting Goran Dragic there. I wonder if Jason Kidd watched that and was like, this is what it's going to be like when Tim Hardaway Jr. and Christian Wood come in, the scoring punch that we got off the bench.
But notice that Goran played a lot late, and because
it's the closing lineup, they worked.
Yeah, they're clearly a better team when Goran and Luka's out there together, and he trusts that. That's the thing I wrote down a lot too. I wrote down a lot, but I thought about it a lot. He just trusts Goran so much, and obviously, if there's anybody in the world he's going to trust, it's Goran Dragic. And since they play together, mentor and all that, but you could just tell that he just trusts him so much with the ball. Luka is playing off the ball. It allows Luka to save a little bit of energy compared to like if somebody's picking him up full court and he's having to bring the ball up the whole time. It's letting Dragic do that. Luka just coming down, doing his thing, kind of then coming up and getting the ball. I just love watching those two play ball together.
Let me finish my Dragic point from earlier.
Yeah.
We don't have to do this every single time Dragic does something. We're like, oh, the Mavericks made such a grave error. It's such a terrible mistake in not signing Dragic. Like, we get it. It seems like they have, if they don't have another move up their sleeve, which I don't know. We've been looking up their sleeve for a while, and we're not seeing anything necessarily down the pike. But yeah, they should have had him, but we don't have to do this every single time on Twitter where we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they didn't sign him. What a terrible decision. Like, okay, yeah, we get it. Let's go.
That's kind of what Twitter's for, though. Goran hits a 3, got to shoot out the tweet real quick. But I got scared late, though. They went down, And I'm sitting there, I text you, I'm like, dude, this is gonna be bad if they lose this, because I went over their group a little bit on yesterday's pod of, they have a super tough group. France doesn't look as good as they did in the Olympics, but like France is no joke. Like they got some other, professional guys, NBA guys in their group and stuff too. So they could lose this, but it's the group stage, but it would have been a big hole for them to come out of if they lost this.
Yeah, coming up, let's break down the end of this game, and then I got a bunch of other thoughts and things just from stuff that we witnessed in this first game. Luka Doncic and Slovenia in Eurobasket in the group stage, so it's still early on. If they lost this, it wasn't going to be like they're out of the tournament or anything like that. But like Isaac said, they really they need to win every single game because there's not too many. So coming up, some more thoughts about Eurobasket and Luka. Some incredible plays, some incredible Luka plays down the stretch. We'll break those down, and then we'll get into Donovan Mitchell coming up. But before we do, let me give you a public service announcement from our friends at NHTSA. Are you one of those people that thinks it's okay to drive stoned? What's the worst that can happen? You could end up driving below the speed limit. It's no big deal, right? Wrong. The truth is your reaction time slows down when you're high. You not only put yourself in danger, but everyone around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop killing yourself. Stop kidding yourself. It's not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, do not get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high and you'll get a DUI. All right, Isaac Harris, we are breaking down Slovenia and Luka Doncic in Eurobasket. This is a tournament overseas. They're in the group stage right now, so they'll play like a little round robin within their group, and then they'll go into the actual tournament part of it. Slovenia did end up winning this game 92-85. Slovenia was they held the lead for a little while, and then Lithuania would just come back. But I don't think at any point, like late in the game, the largest lead for either team was like 7. I mean, this is just a really close game throughout most of this. And there's a couple of key plays that I wanted to get into. First quarter, it felt like Sabonis and Jonas Valenciunas on Lithuania, they weren't the ones causing the most havoc. It was Lithuania's small guards. They kept finding little seams and cutting back door and like getting wide open layups and things. And I felt like that's really what was keeping them in the game. It was tied after the first quarter, and then Slovenia
and their wing Kuzmingas. I think it's Kuzmingas.
Kuzminskas.
Kuzminskas,
who when you look at him, you're like, oh, when's that dude coming into the NBA? That dude.
No, he's older, dude.
I know,
right?
but when I was looking at him, I was like, that dude must be like a 20-year-old that's like gonna come in the NBA soon. No, he was in the NBA like 4 years ago. He's 33 years old right now.
Yeah, homie, I saw his. I'm like, dude, homie, I've seen this dude forever.
Yeah, he played in the. I think he played for the Knicks for 2 years, right? Like he came over, and he was in the NBA at least for 2 years. And but he was great in this game for Lithuania. I was almost more impressed with him than I was with Sabonis and Jonas Valenciunas. Yeah,
no, I agree 100%.
The play in the second quarter where Jonas Valenciunas just got shook by Luka right out from, like, his legs just came out from under him, and the only thing that saved him from just being like a House of Highlights highlight play was Jonas smacked Luka across the face. And they had to go review it and all that stuff. But Luka was, anytime he got a switch on Jonas or Sabonis, he was just taking advantage of him like he does in the NBA.
Yeah, it would have been funny if Luka just played through that just for the highlight sake. And it's like, oh, you would have sold that 100 times out of 100 times. But he did, and he did get hit in the face.
Towards the end of the second quarter, you had Slovenia was like nursing like a little bit of a lead. And then at 50 seconds left in the first half, Luka had a turnover, top of the key. He just was dribbling around and they got the ball taken out of him. Chanchar on the other end hits this huge block in transition where they're both going up at the same time, and he blocks it, keeps it in bounds, which is important with blocks.
That is true.
And then Chanchar gets a layup over Jonas Valenciunas and gets an and one, hits the bucket, like a 5-point swing there that was huge for them. Slovenia takes the lead into halftime, and then you go into the second half. Third quarter, 4 minutes, 51 seconds, Luka, post up, which they started running the post ups a little bit more in the third quarter. I was waiting for them to do that, especially if they could stretch out, Jonas and Sabonis. But Luka can even post up Sabonis. He's not that much bigger than him. But they posted him up, spun Luka, 2-hand dunk, and that's when you felt like the momentum was starting to swing back into Slovenia's favor. And Luka started to get engaged. Like, you just started to see Luka. He plays at a different. It's almost like he sits up in his chair. I feel like for most games, Luka plays back here. He's leaning back. He's chill.
The meme.
He's leaning back, and then all of a sudden he just like Something happens where somebody makes him mad. He gets a dunk. Something happened. He sits up in his chair and then he gets into it. Then Slovenia went on a 13-4 run in the third quarter, right before Luka had checked out, and that was really what gave him the juice to get through this. And then you get into the fourth quarter, and then Lithuania took a run there. They were playing out of the post. They were scoring out of the post, and Slovenia doesn't really have they don't have the defensive like stalwarts that you would want in some of these tournaments. Like they don't have Toby's fine as a rim protector, but he's not Gobert out there. They don't have any wings that are like super athletic or strong that you're like, oh, these guys are gonna stop guys. Like they don't have any of that. But they play really good team defense. They communicate, and Lithuania went on a little run in the fourth quarter against them.
Yeah, they can hit their threes. They switch, and then it got late. We mentioned a while ago, but Dragic hit that huge three on the left-hand side, or right-hand side, right wing there. Went over to the bench, did the whole fist pump in the air. Everybody's going nuts. That's I felt like it was kind of over at that point, but I think it only made it like a 5-point game. They had a 5-point lead, and then they just kind of
there was that run where it was like about the 5-minute mark where Lithuania was up by 5, and then it was like Luka would incredible pass. Luka off of double drag. Toby dives. He hits Toby. Luka drives. Handoff under the rim to Toby. Luka drive. Kick to Toby. Swing to Dragic. That three that you said. Like it was just all working because of Luka's passing. And that was really my big takeaway is that if Luka's shot's not going, he has the other option. And that's what makes an incredible player. That's what takes you from one level where you're like, well, Colin Sexton or somebody that just got traded to the Jazz where you're like a great scorer, but you have to take that next level where you have to add something else to your game. And Luka just has it. And then the 2 minutes left, Sabonis face up against Luka and elbowed him right in the nose. I think
they complained about it, Mike.
I think they reviewed it for like 10 minutes. It took so now Slovenia moves on, or they continue on in this, and they'll play Hungary on Saturday. So that's that game we'll watch out for, and then they play Bosnia on Sunday. So we'll cover both of those games on our Monday episode.
Yeah, Hungary should be an easy one. Bosnia beat them, yesterday. Bosnia obviously has Nurkic. Both of those, you don't want to, say it right now, but both of those should be easier wins for Slovenia.
We hope so. So we'll be covering those games on the Monday show, but let's talk about this Donovan Mitchell trade. So, hours after the Slovenia game, we're sitting there. I was like downstairs in my house, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, let's go to the computer and let's go back. Donovan Mitchell traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Colin Sexton, Larry Markkinen, Ochai Agbaji, who was the Cavs lottery pick this past year. 3 unprotected picks, couple of swaps, and now Donovan Mitchell goes to the Cavs to team up with Darius Garland, to team up with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, and the Jazz. Our boss's team, the Jazz, they're the worst team in the NBA. If after they trade Conley and Bogdanovich and Clarkson, which we think they're going to do, that team is so bad.
I don't know, man. San Antonio's tough.
At least you have like Keldon Johnson, who is,
Well, Utah still has like some vets right now. So
they have Sexton, they have Beasley, they have Larry
Sexton's
Markkinen.
better than anybody on the Spurs, right?
We have to see he's coming back from injury. Like he's a better scorer, but he's not defending anybody. At least Keldon Johnson's two-way.
What sent the Jazz into a rebuild? Luka or the rebrand?
Luka Doncic, Luka Doncic, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic.
The Dallas Mavericks absolutely sent the Jazz into their full rebuild. They took this team, they dismantled this team, and now this team will, once they trade Conley and Bogdanovich and Clarkson, will be a shell of itself that it was last year.
Shout out to their new colors. They have some new players to play in their new jerseys. But here's my thing about the one. I was shocked. I thought the Mitchell thing was going to be in New York, hands down. But I'm glad that he went to the East. Sure, like get as many players as we can to the East as far as good players. I think my biggest takeaway real quick was I'm glad that Cleveland did it. Like, I love the fact that we saw a small market, just like Minnesota did in a way, say, let's go for it. Let's swing for it.
Why
and
not
a small,
us?
Yeah, and a small market who said, we don't give a crap where you want to go. Like, how many times did we hear on all these national podcasts over the past 2 months, it feels like, yeah, but would Donovan want to go there? Like, wherever, Charlotte, Cleveland, like a different team other than New York. And Cleveland says, we don't give a crap. We're going to make the trade. You're under contract for 3 years. We're going to swing for it because we're not getting free agents. They've drafted well. They've made some good trades. They took advantage of the whole like Brooklyn situation, Jared Allen, all of that. Like, they've made some really good moves for them to swing and make this type of trade. And I just think it was a great move from Cleveland and saying, let's do it. Why not? Like, I know you can break down the fit between him and Garland, but you don't get the opportunities to just get star players in your building, and you had the opportunity. They did it. And I just love when a small market swings for it.
Yeah, you can work on fit later a little bit. I think I would have had the same sort of thing with if the Knicks ended up doing this move, but Donovan Mitchell seems to be excited about it, according to our guy Brian Windhorst.
I mean, he doesn't really have a choice, really, though.
But according to him, he was like jumping up and down and excited and like screaming like that he was so excited. And then Donovan Mitchell tweeted out this picture, this really old picture of him in a Cleveland Cavaliers jersey, like a LeBron jersey. And he tweeted that. He tweeted that and the picture of Windhorst going like this.
I think we've reached the stage though that where every kid has a picture of all kinds of jerseys, because now it's happening with like any young player will post a picture of their younger self in that jersey. I'm like, all right, it's happening too much now.
Coming up, what kind of ripple effects could this have on the Dallas Mavericks? Could they get in on any of these guys, Bogdanovich, Clarkson, or Conley? Let us know in the comment section which one you'd rather have. We'll talk about that coming up. All right, Isaac Harris, the Utah Jazz traded Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and now the Eastern Conference is like bulking up. That team's getting better. The Knicks got better over the offseason. You just have a bunch of teams. They had a Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, no. Now that I think about it, I think I'm going to dress my son in all 30 jerseys and just take these random pictures of him around the house and then just keep them all. And of the slight chance they become something in the NBA world one day.
Just in case there's a chance that he...
It's like, look, he was always a Lakers fan, you know?
You should do it every NBA, every MLB, every NFL, like every college. Like if he transfers, like I always wanted to go to Michigan State.
Northwestern, here we go.
Yeah. So what kind of ripple effects could this have? So obviously the Jazz, like they stink now. They're out of the picture. We were toying with it after they traded Rudy Gobert. We thought they would trade Donovan Mitchell. I haven't really considered them in the playoff picture at all, but they're out now. Like they're just completely gone. And so that takes a whole pseudo contender / at least just a playoff team out of the mix.
Yeah, they're done. I mean, once they traded Gobert for nothing, nothing like for this season.
Let's be honest. Once Spencer Dinwiddie dunked on Rudy Gobert the way that he did, they were done.
It was over then. But no, I mean, they're obviously moving towards the rebuild. We all know that with the getting all the first round draft picks and stuff. I mean, yeah, you naturally say, all right, who's the next vet to go? They went first with Patrick Beverley and stuff, and who's the next out of the next three? I mean, I guess you could lump Malik Beasley into that if you wanted to, but I mean, he seems like a guy.
He's like 26. They could keep him if they want to, but
I know it's like I would keep him if I was them. And it's like, why do they have to trade the vets? They technically don't have to. No. You could take them into the season, and realistically, if you took them to the trade deadline, you could probably get a first round pick at the trade deadline for one or two of these guys, maybe all three.
They might.
Probably not Conley, but when you look at the vets now, it's like, why do you trade them now? Because you also have this first time head coach in Will Hardy of like, all right, just give him, like, you're gonna suck. Just give him a roster full of young dudes. Don't drag in the, 3 or 4. Having a couple is one thing, but having 3 or 4 of these vets on your team, that's like, all right, we all know we're not going to be here and all of that. So just go ahead and trade them. I mean, it's easy for us to say, just go ahead and trade them. But I know I would take somebody in Dallas.
I think I would take all 3 of them. Honestly, like I think there's a case to be made for all 3 of those guys, which makes it a good question, which is why you should comment down below which one you'd want. But like you said, the cost is going to matter. Clarkson has 2 years left on his deal. He's making about 14, so he makes less than the other two. So that maybe factors into it. But he probably has more value than Conley does. Conley's making $22 million. He has a non-guaranteed of $24 million in the next year. But he doesn't have as much value right now. So I don't know if the Mavericks would have to send out a whole lot to go get him. But you'd have to also give the Jazz something that they want. And so they could do an OKC type situation where they just keep these guys and trade them like they did for Al Horford and Kemba Walker and whoever else they've traded. I think even Woj tweeted out they'll have an OKC-esque amount of like picks, or they'll take these guys. What was the wording that he used on that tweet? I found that really,
he said OKC-esque.
I found that really interesting. Yeah, Utah still has coveted veteran trade assets, including Bogdanovich, Clarkson, Conley, though approaching Oklahoma City-esque haul of draft assets once they're done dealing. So to me, that says that the Jazz looked at Woj and were like, hey, we'll tell you this news, but also let everybody know that these guys are available for draft capital, because that's exactly what we want.
Yeah, I thought his tweet also was kind of a shot at Danny Ainge of like, hey, here's the deal that they turned down from New York back in July.
That one is so interesting to me. So
wow,
I'm doing Lockdown NBA with Adam Mares tonight, so we'll talk about that a lot. But what would you rather have, the deal that they got, or RJ Barrett, OJ Toppin, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, 3 unprotected firsts?
Yeah, for me, that was the Knicks saying, all right, this is going to be a little damage control, a little bit.
Exactly what it is.
Because we're putting we're putting RJ's name into this, but to save our butts with our fan base, this was the deal that they turned down. Okay, we really wanted him. Yeah, I would have taken that Knicks deal 100% every time.
So I see on like the Lakers Reddit, and you'll roll your eyes at this. Get ready to roll your eyes in 3, 2. Did they say that there's like a big market tax for some of these trades, where like the Lakers would have to give up more than what another team would have to give up because they're in a big market, because these teams don't want to give it? And and Knicks fans think that the same thing about the Knicks, where they have to give up more in a trade than look at those 2 trades. If those were the actual trades, you would rather have the Knicks package than the Cavs package, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's pretty obvious. And so, yeah, I almost, if that's true, if like all this is true, I kind of believe that the Jazz just wanted to squeeze the Knicks of a little bit more. And then obviously the Knicks signed RJ after the Knicks turned that down, or after the Jazz turned that down, the Knicks signed RJ Barrett to that extension, and then he couldn't be traded. And then it was like, all right, well, it's not a deal anymore.
Yeah. So for Dallas, you're looking at these 3 guys. You're looking at Mike Conley, Bogdanovich, Jordan Clarkson. We talked a lot about Jordan Clarkson the other day. I think he's the easiest trade part about this of, when you get into Mike Conley has that extra $24 million next year guaranteed. So the other 2 guys are, basically expiring contracts. So you look at Conley, it's like, could you trade for Conley, not have to give up a 1st-round pick?
Right now, probably, but I think what they're going to do is the OKC thing, where they let him play a little bit. He maybe looks better. He has a bigger role. He like puts up more numbers, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, a team realizes they need a point guard. Maybe the Mavs at a certain point in the year are like, dang, we really are missing that 3rd ball handler, and we really need somebody. They get desperate, and then they give him one. So
they just start him with Colin Sexton. Say,
sure, yeah,
all 2 together. But Jordan Clarkson's the one, because he has that player option. He's $13.3 million. There's just a lot of different ways that you could slice this, if you're Dallas. But once again, it goes back to the debate that we had on this pod back last week, whenever it was would you give up a 1st-round pick to get Jordan Clarkson?
No.
And I would think about it, but
you would think about it. You're in on it. I'm just still out on it, because I want them to like save up for a real trade, like for a real star type, because it's like plugging these holes with some of these guys is not going to fix the problem the Mavs have. And the problem the Mavs have is they don't have a 2nd star, and none of these guys are that. If they can get one of these guys without giving up a 1st-round pick, sure, go for it. But if they have to, I'm wary of it. I'm wary of it, because Bogdanovich will probably garner like a 1st-round pick.
Oh, someone will 100% give up a 1st for him.
The Mavs just gave up a 1st-round pick for Christian Wood. He was on expiring. Bogdanovich is on an expiring, right? So
yeah.
So you look at it and you're like, all right, well.
And Bogdanovich is but yeah, I think, you're right now, if you're Dallas, you saw a little glimpse of, some people out there are saying, well, some of these teams, they're not waiting. These teams are done. Look at Colin Sexton. Now we know what he was waiting on, right?
Yeah.
Like now we know what his camp and everybody was waiting on, because they knew this was a possibility. He didn't sign his qualifying offer. He didn't, maybe, I don't know if there was any other options out there for him, but bam, out of nowhere, he's signing a $72 million deal with Utah, and he's getting paid. So there are still things that could be just like people have been waiting on, like Dallas, that maybe Dallas was waiting to be a third team in the New York deal that fell through.
Yeah.
You know, let's see what happens now before training camp, that, you know, maybe Dallas hops on, you know, one of these Utah guys.
Yeah, there was that Woj, from what you just said, that Woj report that, you know, the packages that the Knicks were going to do with potentially a third team, those packages would have included 2 second-round picks, 2 pick swaps, 2 expiring contracts from a third team. New York would have moved Evan Fournier and a first-round pick to a third team to spare Utah taking on Fournier's remaining $37 million. So that's when the Mavs could have got in with Dwight Powell and maybe, you know, Maxey or Reggie, I guess, is what they would have to do as their expirings to get in on that type of deal. So yeah, other things can still happen. And so now I think that this domino has fallen. We know the KD thing isn't going to happen. Maybe the smaller deals that people are waiting on can now happen. And so we'll see what happens. We'll continue to cover it. We will have it on Locked On Mavs. And then we'll also continue to cover Slovenia with Eurobasket. We'll cover the Hungary game, the Bosnia game, both on our Monday episode. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Go listen to Locked On NBA.
Peace out.